Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. I am Michael Simon from Macworld, joined by King Mingus from Computer World, and I'm filling in for Juliette Beauchamp, who has gone on to greener pastures. So until we get somebody new in this seat,
They're stuck
I
with the
am
two
here
of
as
us.
your host.
They're stuck with the two of us.
And today we are talking about WWDC because it is now, I want to say, 10 days away. Is that right, Ken? 10 days?
12 days. 12
12
days.
days. Okay.
12
We're
days.
we're we're getting right around the corner. It is a week from Monday. The show kicks off at 10 a.m. Pacific time, Monday, June 6th.
Is that early, Michael? That seems a little earlier than I was expecting the week after for some
It's
reason.
been, well, so COVID messed with the time a little bit. So last year it was later. The year
Yeah.
before it was even later. But it's usually that first week in June. Um, Also depends on the calendar and how things fall. But it's been this early before. It's been like June 6th. It's also been as late as like June 20th. It's been in June for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Now the
June, but I was just thinking a little bit more toward mid-month.
Since there's no scheduling logistics with bringing a bunch of developers to California, that they can really do it whenever they want.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure the keynote is recorded and ready to go, even though we're going to get like last minute rumors or Apple changed this. Like they're not. It's done. Like the keynote's done.
Well,
Tim
if
Cook
it's
has
what they
recorded it and it's
say,
finished.
given the production values
Yeah,
that are required, I'm sure that stuff is locked in. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So this week we're going to talk about software, and next week we're going to talk about hardware. Um, Software we are certain of.
Right.
iOS 16, iPad OS 16, Mac OS 13, WatchOS 9, which I really wish they would put that on the 16 cadence because I always forget what number
It's
we're on.
always, is it 8? Is it
Yeah.
9?
And
Yeah. No.
tvOS 16, which they did. tvOS, they just jumped from like 2 to like 15 or 13 a couple of years ago because it was obviously it came out later than iOS. WatchOS is still on its own cadence. But so those five OSs for sure.
Right.
And I would assume, as usual, iOS 16 is the star of the show. It always is.
It should be. I mean, that's Apple sells so many phones. That's got to be
Right.
the backbone of everything,
For sure.
software wise.
Yeah. They usually start the show with tvOS, then watchOS, and they kind of lead into the bigger stuff. But, iOS 16 will be the star. Rumors have been not a ton of them, and there rarely are because mainly, there's no production supply chain stuff to get information from these. The sources have to come directly from Apple's engineering team. Like you can't find someone who worked at Foxconn that says, "Oh, I saw iOS 16 and here's what's in it." That doesn't exist. So we're always quite surprised by the new features. Last year, the biggest feature was that universal control, where you can control a Mac and an iPad together. You put them together. Like that was like a wow moment, but we had no idea that was coming. So there will be some cool stuff coming out of iOS 16. We've heard maybe new notifications, which, they do that all the time.
Yeah.
In my mind, and I'm sure you'd agree, they need to just scrap the entire notification system and start
I
over at
think
this
I've gotten
point.
lost now because some things pop up, some things are grouped, some things
Yeah.
disappear too quickly, some things I can turn on, some things I can turn off, and I agree. I really do think they ought to rethink that from ground one.
Yeah, and it's tough because they've been, notifications have been with us for what, 12 years.
Yeah.
And they keep piling and piling and piling on. Like, all right, so the notification summary that came last year.
Yeah.
And what that does is it collects your notifications that you don't want to receive instantly, like anything that isn't calls and messages and things. And it puts them in like a bundle and then delivers them to you at 8 o'clock at night or something, or whatever, 6 o'clock at night, whatever it is,
Yeah.
which is fine. But to get it to where it's useful, it takes a ton of work. You have to go through each one of your apps and find out which ones you don't want notifications from, which ones you do, and it's tricky. And I don't really know what the answer is. Android does a good job.
There should be some level of machine learning or AI here that Apple could implement that I think would make that easier because you're right, it's absolutely cumbersome.
Yeah,
I mean, think about the number of apps you've got on an iPhone.
yeah,
Even if many of them you don't use, they can be popping out
for sure.
notifications and things. So, I mean, there should be some machine learning, I would think, that would basically say to the operating system, this app is never used. Therefore, I'm going to take any notifications that come from this app, put them in the other pile for
Yeah.
now. And basically do it that way, and then have the user come back in and say, no, no, I want to get those. I think that's a little cleaner solution than doing it the way it's done now. Again, that's just me making up words about AI. I don't know if it's possible or not, but I would like to think
Well,
so.
we see some of that already on the phone where, like, if I call, like, let's say I contact you every afternoon for work,
Yep.
like when I swipe down, it'll say, "Do you want to contact 10?" For example, the people on my staff, it'll say, "Do you want to contact Roman right now?"
Yeah.
Because you generally do at this time of night. Do you want to call Lynn, my wife? Because you generally do at this time. So it does learn from how you use your phone. If notifications they're a mess.
Yeah.
And I generally just swipe them all away. Even the today stuff, like the notification summaries that I get, I barely really pay much attention to them because sometimes they're so old that it doesn't matter.
Right.
So I think what would be a good start, Android has a thing called notification channels. And so let's say like Target, for example, it's not just all or nothing. It's like deliveries are one, sales are one, credit card due is another one. So you can actually prioritize. Okay, I want this, but I don't want this. That might help, but then that's also more work.
Right.
Like, I don't know how you get around the fact that you have to spend, when you get a new phone, when you set up your phone, like a half hour figuring out what notifications you want or don't want to make it, palatable.
Right. And then you've also got the situation where if you've got an Apple Watch, you kind of have to determine which of the notifications are going to go to the watch. If you've got other devices, where the push notifications may be showing up, it just, again, it gets to be very cumbersome. I'm wondering, aside from notifications, I've seen some talk that there might be an updated health app,
Yep.
either for iOS or maybe iPad. I don't know if it's on iPad OS. I
It's
guess
it's not even on iPad.
it should be.
The health app, the fitness app is, but it's nothing really to it. The health app is not on iPad, and it could be because, like, you got that big screen with all those nice charts and stuff, but they
Right.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. So yeah, that we actually have an iPad OS wish list up today on Macworld,
I
and
saw that. You've got
that's one of
that's a
them.
very good list.
Thanks.
Yes. Would you like to tell some of our viewers
Well,
what?
let's continue with iOS 16
Okay, I'm
first
sorry. I don't mean to
before
jump
we
the
get
gun.
there.
Yeah.
We jumped. But yeah, a new health and fitness features / app within iOS 16 is rumored. No details whatsoever.
Yeah.
The health app is actually pretty good on iPhone. Like, if you can see your steps and your heart rate and things like that if you have an Apple Watch, like everything syncs nicely and everything is presented in a good way. They're always adding to it, so maybe that's what that is. Mark Gurman from Bloomberg reported, I want to say like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that Apple was looking to bring, quote, fresh apps
Yeah. What
to
does that
iOS.
mean?
I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah.
If that's new apps, if that's refreshed apps or completely overhauled apps, I don't know. But some of them could use a serious makeover, mail-in messages among them. They're fine, but they're the same as they've been forever. They could, there's a lot of third-party mail apps that have features that aren't in the Apple stock app, and
Mhm.
they could definitely bring some of those like inbox triaging and stuff to mail. So they always do some small things with their apps. We'll look to see what happens there.
Hey, speaking of mail, real quick question.
Yep.
One of the things I've noticed is that it seems like there's very little junk mail filtering in iOS compared to Mac OS. Because if I'm looking at like my inbox on my phone and I look at it on my desktop, there are many more junk mail things that I have tried to either unsubscribe from or label junk mail, and they still seem to somehow get through on the iOS mail app.
That's interesting. Mine doesn't. I don't have that issue.
You haven't seen that? Okay.
No, like if it's junk on one, it'll be junk across all of
It
all
should
of
be,
them.
yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
you don't have something. Maybe there's like a setting you have where it's not just moving into the proper mailbox.
Yeah, could be. All right, all right. It may just be a one-off, may just be me, but it's
Yeah.
something I
I mean,
noticed recently.
the junk filtering it's not bad. It does grab some stuff sometimes that I want, like, I don't know, like say there's like a newsletter, like a New York Times or Washington Post or something.
I've seen that.
Like every day sends me something and I look at it, but I don't click on it. I just look at the headlines and I delete it. that will eventually end up in junk. And I don't know how does it know that I read it, but I don't care about it, but I read it, but I
But
do
you
care
actually
about
do
it.
care
Right,
about it.
right,
Yeah.
right. So that's tricky. Maybe it
It
could
could
tell
be
by
something
like
what's
if you
going on.
scroll to the end of it or something, then it keeps it. Like if you interact with it in any way rather than just clicking. But the junk filtering is okay on iOS. It's not bad.
Okay. It may very well be exactly what you're describing. It may be that it's user difference that I'm looking at mail differently on the phone than I do on the desktop, and
Yeah, it
that's
could be. There are settings that you can send junk mail to different mailboxes, so maybe you just don't have it go into junk.
yeah. Okay. User
Uh,
error.
maybe. The other possibility, which probably isn't happening, it'll probably be tied to the iPhone 14 if it happens at all, is an always-on display that I've wanted ever since Apple released an OLED display back with the iPhone 10 because it's great. I hate looking at my phone and it's blank. There's nothing on it. Like if I want to see the time, I got to tap it. If I'm in the middle of the night, and this happens all the time, I don't have a clock on my nightstand. I have my phone on a stand. And when I wake up at whatever time it is, I got to tap the phone to see the time. And it's very annoying. Yes, I could wear my Apple Watch, but I don't to wear it to sleep. Um, it's annoying and frustrating, and I don't know why Apple hasn't done it. There are rumors, we just reported on it yesterday, that the iPhone 14 Pro is going to have a variable refresh display that goes all the way down to 1 hertz,
Wow.
which is what the Apple Watch does, the LPTO displays. So the always-on Apple Watch display goes refreshes from 60 to 1. That would do it. It'll be very frustrating if it's an iPhone 14 Pro feature because every OLED screen could do it, but that's Apple.
Yeah.
They bring a feature that's everyone's had for years. They tell everyone that it's the greatest thing you've ever seen, and then they tie it to a new product. That's just their thing.
And
But
usually the more expensive version of that product.
yeah, there's that, right. So I mean, it'll be nice to have. It'll be frustrating that that it'll be a pro feature, and we'll talk about that at a later show. But it looks like the iPhone 14 Pro, Apple's pushing hard to get people to go to that Pro line.
Didn't I see something? And I know that we're going to talk about hardware next week, but didn't I see a story that's saying that production of the iPhone 14 is already like falling behind because of like problems?
I mean,
Or is
you
that
read
just
that.
wild
You
rumors?
read, well, yeah, you read that story last year and the year before that too.
Well, no, but I think it probably has more salience this year given
Maybe.
the problems that are going on, over in China with COVID and the supply chain
Sure.
issues, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. They'll still sell plenty of them.
Yeah.
I don't think they've already had shortfalls in their earnings, like significant ones.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm sure there's going to be, but they'll just move stuff around. Like for example, you can't get a MacBook Pro, like a high-end one,
Yeah.
until like August right now. Like it's crazy. So they clearly prioritize certain products over other ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk about that at a
Next
different
week.
time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's really all we know about iOS 16. There's not a ton. Mark Gurman also said that maybe there was new like methods of interaction. Again, very vague. I have no idea what that means. Maybe different gestures. I don't know. And then of course there's that AR VR stuff, which I don't know if that would be tied to iOS, but that could make an appearance as well. But we don't know much about that either.
Right.
So that's iOS. They usually show off 10 new features, so there's going to be a lot to talk about, a lot of surprises with that, I think. Last year we got a new Safari, if you remember, and
Boy,
they walked the whole thing back.
Mistake? It was new, all right. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't improvement, and Apple, to its credit, did start to
Yeah.
back away carefully from all
Before
the
it came out. I was in the beta.
Yeah.
With each new beta, they added
Never
ways
mind.
to go back and change it.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, so we'll see what that brings. Mac OS 13 also. We know even less about that, if that's possible.
Yeah.
There's rumors that it could be called Mammoth, maybe, because Apple has trademarked that name. Which, if it is called Mammoth, Apple has a bit to live up to there, because if you're not familiar with California, that has a connotation that means it's obviously a big release, an important release, a monumental release. So I don't know. They have the M1 processors now across nearly the entire line. so we can start seeing even more. I mean, last year with macOS 12, there were a bunch of features that were for M1. I think that there'll be even more separation between the older Intel Macs and the newer M1, M2 Macs with Apple Silicon, because they can do way more with that chip now that's theirs. So, but I don't know much about what Apple's doing with macOS 13.
I would predict new desktop wallpapers.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's a safe prediction, and I agree. If they're going to call it Mammoth, and we don't know that.
We don't.
We would like to think that if they were to do that, that it would have more than a few UI tweaks and a couple of updated apps, and that there would be something actually mammoth about it.
Yeah, I would like to see the app library. Like, I know there's Launchpad, and I know that the way we use apps on our Mac are very different than they are on iOS and iPadOS, but I would like to see something like that on the Mac. I think it would be super helpful, because I have a ton of apps that I never even remember that they're on there, just like if they resurfaced them, put them in different folders, so I could figure them out, find them. And also the control center could use work.
Yeah.
It's just not intuitive. It's not as intuitive as it is on the iPhone. And the big one that I've wanted forever is Time Machine backups in the cloud. iCloud backups for the Mac. Like, I know 5 gigabytes isn't enough. So if you do that, you're forcing people to upgrade, but you kind of are already, because our iPhones hold 64, 128 gigs. So 5 gigs isn't really enough there anyway. And storage is so cheap. It's like $1 for 50 gigs, $10 for a terabyte. So, and with the Apple One bundles, is even less. But that's a big one that I still have an old Time Machine capsule. I don't know if you can see it behind I have so much junk behind me, but it's back there somewhere.
I trust you. Yeah.
That I use for backups, because I had it for, but if I could just have it back up to the cloud like my iPhone and iPad, first of all, it's easier to restore your machine.
Yeah.
And secondly, it would encourage backing up, just like it does on the iPhone.
Well, it seems
like a no-brainer to me.
It would also be a very smart move from Apple, who is obviously, they've been rolling out a lot of services lately, and as you say, sort of setting it up in a way that people need to pay more on a monthly basis. But I would certainly pay, some X number of dollars, not some crazy figure, but to have backups done, I don't know, daily, whatever, or even weekly in the cloud. I'm sure I have not backed up my desktop Mac in several weeks, and I have a specific hard drive dedicated to it, but I've got to remember to do it, go get the hard drive, plug it in. So, it should just be seamless. I mean, it's a very Apple thing to do.
And it's there. Like, the system is there.
And storage, as you say, is cheap, and bandwidth is plentiful for a lot of people, not everyone. But
iCloud already does, it'll back up your documents, it'll back up your desktop.
Yeah.
But it stops short at like a full restore of your machine, and it would be, I think, great. I mean, just great for that. Also, there's a lot of people who are new to the Mac after coming from the iPhone, so like they expect that. So that I'd like to see that as well. But we have no rumors that's going to happen. Yeah, for sure. And also, why is it system preferences and not settings? Like, I know it's a throwback, but like, come on, why are we still calling it that? But anyway, that's not a big deal.
I can get around.
All right, so iPadOS 16. In my mind.
The iPad. Yeah, you hate the iPad. It's the in-between model. Yes. Go ahead.
Could be the biggest news coming out of WWDC. If Apple, like, we've heard rumblings that they're looking at multitasking, that there are major changes coming to iPadOS, and it absolutely needs it. Yeah. Now that the iPad Pro and the Air have that M1 processor, which is a ridiculous amount of power for what it is, Apple really has an opportunity here to make it like a real powerful hybrid device between the Mac and the iPhone. And the key to that is iPadOS fundamentally changing the way it works, I think.
Right.
Not in a way that's going to make it confusing or unfamiliar, but there has to be a way to bridge that gap. When you pop it onto that Magic Keyboard, like, something else should happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it should become a more powerful interface device, a more powerful desktop. I think,
Well,
because
go ahead.
they're missing out on so much that this thing could do, all of them. And you can make it a pro feature if you want, but it doesn't have to be. It's just, the iPad is such a powerful, beautiful piece of hardware that I just feel like they're really missing an opportunity.
Well, I was looking through, as you noted that you guys on Macworld have a sort of a rundown of the kinds of things you'd like to see in iPad OS. And if you take the various suggestions, if you will, and put them all together, it would actually turn the iPad with the keyboard, the Magic Keyboard,
Mm-hmm.
into I think a much more business-friendly device than it
Sure.
is now. It really would. And also when you take a look at the list, and maybe we can, somehow drop the link in so people can take a look at this. But when you talk about things like multiple users, desktop mode, high-end pro apps, external monitor support, things like that, those are all the kinds of things that I think people would use the iPad for it in business. Now, there are many more there that you folks have listed in terms of UI changes that are needed. But I mean, it feels like the way iPad OS has evolved is that it's a variety of discrete good features that are kind of like siloed. Nothing really works well. I think, you guys made the point about floating windows and how it differs from the desktop, or just the fact that the iPad seems to be locked into those damn icon,
Yeah.
the grid.
Well, it's still very much stuck in the iPhone era.
Yeah, the
It's
older
it's very
iPhone.
much just a big iPhone. That was the knock on the iPad when it first came out,
Yeah,
was that it was a big iPhone, and it still is. Even though it has its own name for the OS, it's still iOS,
yeah,
just bigger. Widgets aren't great. The grid isn't great. It could be so much better,
yeah.
and I don't know if we're gonna get that. Like I said, we've heard rumors that maybe, but that's the one that needs the most help in terms of, we have this. I mean, the iPad, any of them. But if you take the iPad Air, which is $600,
Yeah.
there is nothing in its class except for the other iPad, the iPad Pro. There's nothing. It is the greatest tablet far and away. So is the Mini. So is the Pro, and honestly, so is the iPad Air, the low end iPad,
Hmm.
because 329 bucks. It's older design and all that stuff, but it's still great. The iPad hardware is incredible. There are so many people who would make that their number one device, their primary device, if they could.
Yeah.
But I've tried it. I can't do it. I
Same.
need the Mac.
Same, I do exactly for at least for work purposes. The iPad, it feels like it's just a kludge compared to the desktop. But I do know people that have, they have like a late model MacBook Pro and an iPad,
Yep.
and they really do about 99% of what they want to do on the iPad. The MacBook Pro is sitting there in the corner, gathering dust. So obviously for some people, things as they are now, it works very well. But I think, if you really wanted to I mean, just goose sales of the iPad. The changes that we've been talking about and that you have listed on Macworld would make a huge difference.
And iPad sales are kind of falling. They they went up a little bit during the pandemic, but now they're dropping again.
Yeah,
So, meanwhile, Mac sales are through the roof. So something has to be done there, and I'm sure Apple's working on it. I don't know if it's going to come out this year, but I think that's the number one device that can benefit most from a massive software change.
right. Agreed.
And then we have WatchOS 9. I don't know.
Are we going to get a new watch this year? I know that's hardware. We'll talk it
Yeah,
next
yeah,
week,
yeah.
but as
I
a
mean,
preview of coming attractions for next.
yeah, Series 8 will come out. There's some rumors there. Yeah, we'll talk about that down the line.
All right.
But as far as WatchOS 9, the big change that's been rumored is a better low power mode, which is desperately needed.
Yeah.
Right now, low power mode basically shuts your entire watch off except for a small little digital readout of the time. And yeah, it lasts for like 3 days, but who cares? You can't do anything with it.
It's just, yeah.
So there should be options there. There should be some of the Wear OS watches have several kind of tiers of battery saving. You
Yeah.
can keep on, you can shut off notifications, you can keep on step tracking, but turn off heart rate tracking. I think that there should be different levels, so you can make it last longer, but not completely shut off the functionality of your watch like it does now. Probably some new health stuff. I don't know. I don't know what, Apple's kind of like stuck in this where WatchOS 9 is very much dependent on hardware, and they're still selling Apple Watch 3, which doesn't have any of those features. So until they drop support for that, which I assume happens, I think this will be the last OS that supports Apple Watch Series 3. I have to assume.
You think it'll still support 3?
Well, they have, because they still sell it.
Yeah.
So they have to support it, right?
Well, they could stop selling it and just, tell people they could drop prices.
But they sell it now.
Yeah.
So to say that a watch you can buy from us isn't going to support the newest OS that comes out in September, I don't know how that's not a great move.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would assume next year they'll stop selling it in September, and then WatchOS 10 does not support Apple Watch 3. I don't know who's buying the Apple Watch 3. I would not recommend it.
No.
For $200, it's
It's
overpriced.
too outdated.
It's old, but it would be a really, really bad move if they don't support a current watch with the upcoming OS. That's like saying that what's the oldest iPhone? The iPhone 11. You can't get iOS 16 on that. That's crazy. Like that's not it. Right. That's not right.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then probably something for tvOS. I have no idea what it would be, but I have to assume there'd be some updates there. tvOS.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, we don't know. I'd like to see a new. What's it? A grid, like a new grid for the Apple Watch, for the Apple TV app.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty good the way like that up next thing.
Yeah.
But it's very cluttered. It's very scattered. Like I wish I can go in there and it was like almost like one of those old school TV grids, and it had like Hulu and here's what's on, or here's what you might like, or here's what you haven't watched, or whatever it is, and then Netflix, and then here's this, and then Disney Plus, and here's this. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know if they'll do that. I also think Apple TV Plus shouldn't dominate that screen, which it does.
Yeah, it feels a bit self-serving.
They have their own tab there.
Yeah.
But they also load it up with all sorts of their new stuff.
It's good at surfacing things that you might have labeled, might have designated as up next or things you want to watch. But you do have to kind of root around a little bit, and it feels like luck of the draw as to what's going to show up to remind you to watch it, or that it's something you started and haven't finished yet. It doesn't feel it doesn't feel like an elegant solution in its current iteration.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. See, how about that? There is lots of stuff coming for WWDC.
Well, yeah, no, it'll be jam-packed. We don't know what it is, but those 5 OSs will all get updates. Possibly more than that. We don't know if the AR VR stuff is coming out, or if HomePod is going to get its own, or AirPods.
Yeah.
So those 3 as well. WWDC is always loaded with news. It doesn't always have hardware, and we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah.
But it's always jam-packed with news. We have a question that I'm not sure I can answer, but let me see. This goes back to the iOS 16 notification conversation that we were having a couple minutes ago.
Yeah.
So it says, are the Android, Apple, iOS alerts multicast many-to-one push notifications as the pull notification service, which means that portable endpoint devices such as cell phones have to continually pull the server for changes, increasing the risk of slowing it down or crashing with requests, or are they push notifications? As far as I know, they're all pull notifications unless you have an app that sets it to I'm sorry, they're all push.
I assume they were all push. They're pushed to the device, right?
They're push unless you
and
have
then distributed to whatever once you've got signed into the same iCloud account.
Yeah. There are some that offer, like Mail offers options,
right?
But most of them are just they push to you.
Yeah.
But I might not be answering that. It's a bit more technical than I am with notifications, but I appreciate the question.
That's good.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, so when we talk about these features that we want, we're obviously talking as like, simpletons. Like, I don't know what it
Speak for
takes
thyself, sir.
for Apple to, like I say, I
Well,
want better multitasking on the iPad. Apple's like, well, screw you. That's like a 3-year project,
right, exactly. We
but
make
I'm a
it
user.
we make
I
it
don't
sound
care.
yes, we make it sound simpler than I'm
Yes.
sure it is to implement
And,
these things.
and possible. Like sometimes the things that we want just aren't feasible.
Right. But I will say though, I think anyone looking at say iPad OS and like, well, where do we go from here? There are some very serious,
Yeah.
realistic options there for Apple that I think, again, back to the Macworld story that you guys have identified. It's not for lack of ideas here, but for whatever reason, these things just don't get translated, into software.
Like for example, multiple users on the iPad.
Yeah,
That can be done
of
because
course it can.
they do it. If you
Yes.
have the education software and you're a teacher,
Yeah.
there is a login screen
Yeah.
for multiple users. It's there. They just choose not to bring it to users. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of these things that can be done. There's a lot of these things Apple chooses not to do, and there's a lot of these things that would probably be too clunky and difficult to implement. I don't care.
We still won't.
Yeah, I still want it.
All right. Well, look at it this way. In 2 weeks, we'll know. We'll have
Yeah.
some idea.
Yeah, so WWDC keynote is not next Monday, but the Monday after.
Monday or Tuesday?
Monday.
It's Monday this year.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's always Monday.
Is it? I thought it was Tuesday.
Their
Right.
events are Tuesday,
That's right. That's right.
sometimes Wednesday.
Yeah.
WWDC is a week-long thing, so it kicks off on Monday morning, always, all the time. 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Whatever time zone you're in, it's always that time. Like it's the normal Apple keynote time.
Yeah.
This year they are having like a gathering at Apple Park for
Yeah.
people. They invited people, developers. They had to submit a what is it, like a raffle, I guess.
Yeah.
So there will
Like
be
a
people
lottery.
there watching. Yeah, I don't know exactly what that is. I think they're just probably watching the same stream we're watching on the big screen there.
Mhm.
But that's cool. If anybody got an invite to that, let us know after it's over so we can find out what it was like, because
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And next week we will talk about hardware, which is what everybody wants to know about, and I do too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions there, so we'll dive into all of that next week. And that's it. Thanks for watching. If you like this, or if you don't like me as host, don't worry. I won't be here for very long.
We
But
like you as host, Mike.
if you like the show, let us know in the comments. Let us know what you want to see at WWDC when it comes to software. What are you most excited to see? iOS, macOS, watchOS, whatever it is. Like and subscribe and all that stuff that you do on YouTube, and we will see you next week.